Yeah, so I have clinic today and was in and out of clinic, and it turned out, luckily, we were able to carve out about 15 minutes. So I actually will be here live. And let me share my screen and I'll pull up a slideshow. All right, well, I hope you can see the slide then. I was asked to comment about the Alabama Rare Disease Advisory Council, and my role is as chair of the council. I'm Associate Dean for Genomic Medicine at UAB and a medical geneticist, so I have a lot of experience over the years in diagnosis and management of individuals with rare disorders. So let me very quickly review for you the charge to the council. I'll introduce you to the members briefly, say some words about activities and kind of ways that the council can interface with the rare disease community. Council was formed as an act of the state legislature in 2017 with these 5 elements of charge to the council. The first is to discuss strategies to improve understanding of the diagnosis, treatment, and impact of rare diseases. Then to collect data about rare diseases, including cost and economic impact. Third, to coordinate rare disease collaborations across the state, including academic medical centers, investigators, funding agencies, biotech companies, and advocacy groups. Fourth, to highlight collaborations and synergy between clinicians and investigators, academic medical centers, state and federal funding agencies, biotech and pharma companies, and nonprofit research and medical institutions. And finally, to report findings to the Alabama legislature. There's some stray numbers here due to the way this was copied, so I thought I edited those out. Annually, with the goal to address changes in rare disease policies that will positively impact citizens in the state. All right, so that's what we're supposed to do. I'll say now and come back to this point, there is no budget attached to this council. So we are all volunteers and everything we do is volunteer effort. So we don't have any funding from the state or from anybody else. We did get one contribution, a donation about a year ago almost now. And that's helped us with a few projects that you'll hear about. But otherwise, this is a lot to do with relatively little budget, well, no budget really to work with. So here are the members of the council. Now the membership categories are determined by the bill that was enacted by the legislature. It involves representatives from the major academic centers in the state, UAB, in the University of Alabama system, University of South Alabama, and Hudson Alpha Institute for Biotechnology, which is not a academic institution, but a nonprofit institution focused on genomics, which certainly is important in the study of rare disease. There are patient advocates who are on the council. And we also have 2 state senators and a bioethicist participating in the council. The membership is 3-year terms, the first of which now is completed actually for everybody. And these are renewable ×1. So I guess everybody, except one person just recently was named to the council, but otherwise we're in our 2nd terms. And I'll just quickly mention a few of the things that we have been doing and highlight a few in subsequent slides. We are supposed to meet quarterly, and we do. That's been done pretty regularly since the initiation of the council. In the early days, we met face-to-face at UAB, and because many of our members were coming from a significant distance in the state, even in the early days, long before COVID, we did create a video conference link that those that couldn't make it here in person could participate. Obviously, since COVID, we have not been able to meet face to face, and we've been doing it entirely by Zoom. And to tell you the truth, I think it's worked exceedingly well, to the point that I'm not sure we won't just continue that indefinitely, because representing the state, which is a large area, this is a pretty big state, and could take somebody 6 hours to drive from one end to the other. The Zoom meetings, in this case, actually have worked quite well. And I'm sure we'll at least keep that option open, and I could imagine we might even make that the kind of mainstay of the meetings. Not a question we've had to face just yet, but I think it might be coming. We try to start each meeting with a presentation by a patient advocate, either as a person who personally is affected by a rare disorder, or oftentimes it's a parent of somebody or family member of a person with a rare disorder. We have really found it helpful to provide that perspective at these meetings. I think the members of the council really appreciate it. And I guess it all helps to keep us kind of focused on why we're there. We actually have communicated with the state public health lab about newborn screening. It's been an area of interest. And the State Commissioner of Public Health does serve as a member of the council. At the time when we started, there was transition taking place in terms of leadership at the State Department of Public Health, and there was a new facility being instituted, and Alabama was lagging on introduction of some of the tests that other states had already adopted. I think most of that has been rectified. It's been, to be honest, a little bit challenging getting full engagement during COVID for obvious reasons. I think they're very much immersed in the state's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, so I wouldn't have expected them to be as engaged in work of the council as they were, and as we hope they will be. The council has played a big role in helping to organize our Rare Disease Day activities. I'll say more about that in a moment. We're really excited about the resource manual that we've put together, and I'll show you something about that. And you know, Alabama Rare is, I'd say, the major force for patient advocacy in rare disease in the state, and a task force has been set up that Swapna Kakani, who is the leader of Alabama Rare, is chairing, to look for ways that we can synergize more closely with Alabama Rare and with the rare disease community in general. These are screenshots from the Rare Disease Day symposia that we held this year. We've been doing one every year since 2014, on or about the Rare Disease Day. I guess it's generally commemorated the end of February. And in the last couple of years, the council has played a role in terms of organizing the agenda, and Alabama Rare has spearheaded the second day. So it's a 2-day event, and it has been for the last few years, generally a Friday and Saturday. And the Friday is an event that mostly targets professionals, that would be physicians and nurses and genetic counselors, other health caregivers, as well as researchers. And it's usually a thematic kind of day, and the theme this year was next generation technology and its role in managing rare disease. And you can see the agenda here. We were talking about genome sequencing and new techniques in genome sequencing, bioinformatics. Telehealth, of course, has become a big thing in the past year, spurred by COVID, although we were beginning to get into it even before COVID. Discussion about health disparities, which is a concern across medicine, and certainly it is as well in rare disease. And each year we try to have what's called a parent panel. It's really a panel discussion of, could be parents or adults who themselves have a rare disease. Basically just kind of talk about their journey and are available for a Q&A session. We always have a keynote speaker. This year it was David Feigenbaum talking about his efforts to develop treatment for his particular rare disorder. The second day, which Alabama Rare took responsibility for organizing, is focused on patients and caregivers, as you can see, coping as an individual and a family, particularly in the context of some of the challenges of the last year, but in general as well. Helping people with advocacy and community building. And then we had a talk by a state legislator. This year, because of COVID, the entire thing was done virtually using Zoom. We also did have a kind of a cocktail hour at the end of the first day. Here too, I think Zoom proved to be extremely successful. Although I think we would be eager to get back as soon as we can to some kind of face-to-face thing. Given, again, what I mentioned earlier, this is a very, very large state with big distances between places. By virtue of it being on Zoom, we were able to bring people in who might not have been able to make the trip here. And it's possible that we'll look for ways to create this as a hybrid meeting going forward. I guess that remains to be seen. I mentioned that we've created a resource guide. I think one of our early perceptions was that there's a lot of stuff available in the state that people might not be aware of. And, in essence, this was meant to be a kind of user's manual for people so that it would be a single place they could go to learn about some of the things that either are available to them or just about principles in general. So this is a screenshot of the table of contents, defining a rare disease, word about diagnosis, use of social media, how to get the most out of the relationship with your healthcare provider, talking to family members, dealing with financial issues, what does it mean to be participant in clinical research, and then there's an appendix of what we thought were useful resources. We've also created a website, which I guess I'm using a version of the slides I forgot to update, but the URL is pretty easy. It's Alabama Rare Disease, I think just council.org. And I can't remember now if advisory is required in there or not. I'll double check that before we're done. But anyway, it should be pretty easy to find. And it has pretty much all the contents that are in the manual, plus you can download the manual. I am using an obsolete version of the slides. Let me actually, because there were a couple others I wanted to show, and thinking that I wasn't going to be able to be here, I did record a video, and I guess what I must have done is move the actual final version of the slides to another place. So give me a second, I can find it because it has the last couple of slides that I was hoping to show. So this won't take but a moment. Okay, back to sharing. And let me just, oops. Here's the URL I was referring to, which I was right, it doesn't have advisory in it. So it's a long URL, but not too hard to remember. This is what I wanted to show. It's just a screenshot from the resource manual. On the left are some rare disease facts. On the right, we put together, as best we could, a compendium of rare disease clinics throughout the state and what the contact information was for these. Now, this is a bit of a fluid thing because clinics tend to change over time. And I'm only showing you the first of several pages of this, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. We'll try as best we can to keep it up to date, but we hope that this would be a resource that people would find useful. All right, so the last slide, I just wanted to end with, kind of a compendium of things we found challenging and things that we're hoping to do. I said this earlier, but I think it bears repeating. It's an unfunded kind of council, and so everything is volunteer effort. Everybody on it has, lots of other things they're responsible for, professionally and personally. So I will say it takes longer than I wish for lots of things to happen, but that I think is what happens when, it's not anybody's full-time job to make sure the council is doing its work. So, and some of the things that we were asked to do, like to, assess the economic impact, it's not a trivial undertaking. It's a study that would be a fairly challenging one to do and pretty hard to do when you have no funding. So we've tended to focus our efforts on things we thought we could make a difference with, that the resources we did have would be supportive of. We feel like it is going to benefit everybody if we can strengthen the ties with the rare disease advocacy community, and I think that's the rationale for the task force with Alabama Rare, to see where there's synergy that we can establish with that group. We really do feel there's a lot of power to individual stories. That's certainly been visible to the members of the council from the presentations done before each meeting. One thing we're interested in is seeing if people are willing to share their stories even on our website, because I think people can learn a lot from hearing about the journey others have had. We're also interested in building some educational materials. We have already, of course, in the form of the resource manual talking about genetic testing and clinical trials. We're looking to do some brief videos that would be available to people to learn about some of these things as well. There's probably a lot of stuff out there on YouTube. I think if we can aggregate things that are specific to our community, that will be helpful. And a long-term goal, challenging one to be sure, is to create more of a statewide network with public health clinics involved and advocacy groups across the state, so that people with rare disorders in Alabama don't feel alone in their journey and know that there are groups willing to support them. So I think I will stop at this point and hopefully have left a few minutes, and if there are questions, I certainly would be glad to try to answer them. So thank you.